Another weekend has gone in League One. It's time we sit down and chat about all of the biggest moments. Let's go. As always, if you do find value from the content, please make sure you leave a like and subscribe. And most importantly, let me know in the comments below, how do you reflect on your team's weekend performance? Let's begin with the first game, the Thames Valley Derby. It's Oxford against Reading. It finishes Oxford 1, Reading 1. The XG 1.13 to 0.27. The points are shared in the Thames Valley Derby as both Oxford and Reading replicate the same score from the reverse fixture back in December. Let's begin with the first team, Oxford United. A game that passed the home side by. Glimpses of promise but far too much inconsistency within the game. And to be honest, probably a story of Des Buckingham's time in charge so far. Sloppiness in possession, one very scary stat that reinforces that point coming to you later on. A general scrappiness to the game. When you only create one clear-cut chance and only have a one-goal cushion, you are asking for trouble. And Oxford, well, they got punished for just that. We'll touch on the graph in just a moment and some quite disturbing shot maps later, but it's just not quite clicking. That's the best way of putting it. It's not clicking, it's not falling into place. And sometimes you feel as though we're getting closer, and then within, let's say, 10 minutes later, you feel as though you're a million miles away. And that comes back to the only consistency being inconsistency. For Reading, the game plan was clear. Keep the game tight and play with a chance. Was the quality always there? No. Was the quality ever really there? Not so much, but for Reading that wasn't the point. It was about staying in the game and making it about the fine margin. Scoring from an own goal, only having one shot on target across the 90 minutes, you'd say that approach worked an absolute treat. Let's touch on the graph in front of you now. The graph visualises Oxford's patchy performance well. What happened to a decent spell of control? It is all over the shop. It's a disgusting graph for both teams, especially for Oxford. The limited chances when we had control. But again, we're speaking about control. There wasn't much of that whatsoever. I understand against Pompey, playing in transition is sensible. And you can play in transition and still have the majority of the ball. It's less likely. But for Oxford, it was neither. It was a really, really confusing approach to the game, and it's even more annoying because these group of players have proven they can sustain effective pressure in the early stages of the season. So what's happened? Where has that gone? Let's touch on the stats because there are some frightening metrics that back up Oxford's poor performance. In my eyes, Oxford did not do enough to win the game. That's the headline. There's been confusion after the game. I think Brannigan said that they did do enough. I think Des Buckingham has said they still created enough to win the match. I don't feel that. I really don't. We scored in the first half and then accumulated an XG of 0.02. Our goal made up 0.94 of our total expected goals. Essentially, other than the goal that was a very high expected goals, we created nothing. We created so little. In fact, other than this goal we scored in the first half, Oxford only had one shot in Reading's box. You can see by looking at the shot map now, it visualises that horrendous showing going forward, presents it very, very clearly. Whoever's in charge, an ex-City Group manager or not, that attacking output is woeful. Absolutely woeful. Oxford scored their one good chance in the game, and that's why we didn't win this game. Because you can't just take one chance, create one chance and defend. We've proven this season, Oxford, we are so guilty of giving away sloppy goals. We don't keep many clean sheets. You've got to create more than one chance. But worryingly enough, that's not the scariest stat I can bring you. Watching the game yesterday, it was so clear we were sloppy with the ball. I've checked, and Oxford attempted and completed less passes than Reading, finishing the game with a 60% pass accuracy. A manager brought in to play progressive football has just seen his side average 4 bad passes in 10. That is terrible. From a Reading perspective, they weren't much better, but were rewarded for staying in the contest. According to expected goals, the best chance they created was worth 0.09. They managed only one shot on target, and as I said, they scored from a Kieran Brown own goal. Things don't get much better for Oxford next week. A trip to Blackpool awaits. Let's work on passing in training in the next 7 days or so, because that game and that performance was dreadfully scrappy, and against a better opposition, we will be punished so heavily. Next up, Portsmouth 4, Northampton 1, the non-penalty XG 1.42 to 0.60. At least it wasn't 4-0, because that would have made T-Lot feel that even longer. Of course, I'm joking. Let's touch on Pompey first. It's felt as if Pompey have been edging closer to the brilliance of the opening months. Yesterday, it all just kind of fell into place. A controversial red card from Tom McIntyre. In my eyes, it's not a red card, but that's not the point. In fact, it didn't make too much of a difference. Pompey doubled their goals tally even after he was dismissed. With Bolton and Peterborough also dropping points, the result in isolation feels that even more sweeter, but in this video, I'm going to tell you and focus on how Pompey managed to do it. Before we do that, let's touch on their opposition, Northampton. It was a bad day at the office for the away side, who even with a man advantage for a large period failed to ever get a foothold in the game. But from a brief look at social media, I totally agree with Northampton fans. The performance was poor. However, games away to Pompey won't define their season. They've been very good this season. It's the first time they've got back-to-back League One defeats under their belt since October. They remain in a very, very strong league position. Let's take a look at the graph here, brought to you by SofaScore. Pompey just love playing Northampton, don't they? And Northampton just hate playing Pompey. That's an aggregate score this season of 7-1 to the Blues. The home side found their groove and won this game by half-time, even with another Bishop missed penalty. I'm not going to claim this stat. All of these stats I do research myself, but this one I didn't. Jake told us earlier on Teal-Up, Colby Bishop has missed 4 penalties this season, all of which have come between the 40th minute and the half-time whistle. Do not let Colby Bishop take another penalty before half-time. Just don't do it. He's going to miss it. Take a look at the stats in front of you too. Pompey's attacking play was back to its best. The home side created 4 big chances and 7 of their 10 shots were on target. One metric surprised me, and that was the number of passes both teams had. Northampton attempted and completed more passes than Pompey, but one side scored 4 goals and comfortably brushed past the opposition. When you dissect the goals, everything becomes clear. The home side scored from 3 set pieces and a breathtaking rapid counter-attack finished brilliantly by Paddy Lane. Pompey remain with the highest number of set play shots and expected goals compared to all other teams in League One. If you're wondering why, well, Marlon Pack, that boy can ping and deliver a ball to perfection. Take a look at the average positions for Pompey. It's a quick and simple point, but take a look at that Portsmouth front line. The quality inside the opposition half is frightening and so fluid. They can interchange, and they do interchange all of the time. All 3 players behind Colby Bishop can play anywhere across that front line. The ways to attack an opposing team is just simply unpredictable. You've got Lang, you've got Bishop, who does stay as that focal point, but you've got Lane and Piet Harris again. They are unpredictable, and it comes back to hurting teams in different ways. They have got unlimited amount of options. Let's chat key players, because I think Paddy Lane is one of, if not the best winger in League One right now. It's a big statement, but I believe it. His ability to dribble with the ball is great, but most importantly, his output is sensational. Both his goals yesterday were exquisite finishes. That's now his 9th of the campaign. He now sits in the top 6% for goals from wide players in League One. He's also outscoring his expected goals by 4. He is running so hot at the moment. The skipper, Marlon Pack, led by example. The deliveries were fantastic, but the pass to Lane for his first goal was beautiful. I saw it firsthand against Oxford United last Tuesday. He makes a switching pass look so easy. And trust me, if you've played any kind of football, to hit that distance that accurately is so difficult. It is so difficult. He created 3 chances, made 9 passes into the final third, and was also involved in 10 defensive actions from back to front. The captain continues to make this Pompey side click. Next up, Bolton 1, Barnsley 1. The XG 0.62 to 0.89. The 2 sides inside the top 6 share the points. It was tight and pretty cagey. Let's talk Bolton Wanderers first. A battling, hard-fought point in a game where Bolton never found their explosive rhythm. Rare clear-cut chances, a failure to find another gear. It seems that performance against that opposition is a comfortable point to swallow. New man Aaron Collins looked to be the biggest takeaway for Bolton in this game. His impact was sensational. We'll touch on the details later, but it seems he is already a breath of fresh air. As for Barnsley, the away side were missing one thing, a clinical touch. The numbers will back this up in a moment, but this game could have been out of sight from a Barnsley perspective. It felt as if so many chances went wayward. But you know you've done pretty well if you walk away from Bolton feeling as if you've dropped 2 points. It was one solid Barnsley display. It just missed one final key element that would have been the cherry on the cake. In front of you is the graph brought to you by SofaScore. It does show Bolton's control in the opening 45 with an XG though of 0.32 to show for it. It all felt a little bit flat. Maybe I've jinxed Bolton because last week I spoke about their ways to find important gears at important moments. Maybe there's still some inconsistencies, but of course the quality of opposition has improved. Let's talk about the stats then. There's some interesting points to take away. Barnsley scored from their only shot on target in the first half, soaking up 72% possession, only conceding a single shot on target. After the break, Barnsley created far more. In transition, the away side were fantastic. Go and watch back all of the opportunities that Barnsley had in the second half. The turnover and the ability to be effective on the turnover was so effective. I've taken 2 separate screenshots, both of which are Barnsley breakaways. That's how you hurt Bolton Wanderers. They got them on the overload, 4v2, sometimes 5v2, time and time again. They created an overload when winning the ball back all of the time. This can be explained further when looking at the average positions. The wide threat for Barnsley is always through Cadden on the left, but all of the biggest chances were made centrally. Sheehan was caught out in the middle for the first, and suddenly Cole, McAtee, supported by either Kane or Phillips, are creating a 4v2 overload, with Barry Cotter playing heavily inverted, creating a numerical advantage in the midfield. That worked so well. Sheehan, Maghoma and Dempsey really struggled to make an impact in this game. It was clever and a really good way of packing out the area in which Bolton can be most dangerous. On key players, individually there weren't many standouts, but Josh Earl looked at home on his debut. What is it about new players making an impact? Because Aaron Collins also looked like a breath of fresh air when he entered the pitch for Bolton Wanderers. He should start in their next game in midweek with Budvarsson, because the two of those transformed the attack for them. On the left-hand side of a back three, though, Josh Earl looked so comfortable. Napper said time and time again when he was at Fleetwood, he's a Rolls-Royce defender. Yesterday, he accumulated 3 clearances, 9 defensive actions, and a 100% tackle success rate. The final game in real detail, Charlton 0, Derby County 1. The XG 0.79 to 0.49. Charlton's first win in any competition for 2024 will have to wait. Derby win 1-0 at the Valley. Let's touch on the home side Charlton first, who as of recording have just appointed Nathan Jones. But in this game, no manager, no backbone, no clear leadership. It's hardly surprising things are only getting worse. This Charlton team reminds me of Oxford last season. On paper, better than most teams around them, but a severe lack of mental strength is dragging them down every single week. They need somebody to turn to. It looks like Nathan Jones will be that guy. Before anything technical, he's got to galvanise this group and build a connection. I call it the triangle to connections. That's between himself, the players and the fans. When you get that triangle working, you can pull in the same direction. And Nathan Jones, he has got a good track record of galvanising supporters. Not so much at Southampton, but at Luton, he did a fantastic job. When looking at Derby County, it was an away performance moulded perfectly in Paul Warne principles. Firstly, defensively, Derby were absolutely immense. Any question Charlton posed, the league's second best defensive backline just bounced it right back. To a man, the away side were brilliant. Things are meant to be pretty, they're meant to be effective, and the robust, organised game plan was exactly that. Let's take a look at the graph in front of you now. Look at the size of those blue bars. Which team won this game? Well, it was the team with the blue bars. Classic Paul Warne. No need for large periods of dominance. Take your chance and defend. We've said it before. When it works, it feels great. When it doesn't, in the early stages of the season, Derby fans, you'll be able to relate, it feels like the worst possible style of play. But like I say, when it comes off, it is very, very satisfying. It takes time with Paul Warne. It's about finding the click and not looking back. Perhaps this is an example of that. When touching on the stats, it's the details that cost Charlton. Again, plenty of the ball, but little ways of hurting the opposition. With 61% possession, the home side only created a single big chance and 3 shots on target. But then you'll say, if you look at Derby's stats, they had far less of the ball, they had the same number of shots on target, and no big chances. So how have they won this game? Well, it's simple. Punishment. Charlton struggled to create, and Derby punished. Charlton made one sloppy pass, and Derby punished. One team on the up against one team with very little direction. That's what happens. When you look at the average positions, the first job Nathan Jones has got is working out how he wants to set up this disjointed squad. These are the Charlton average positions from yesterday, and I'm confused. That defensive structure is hurting my brain. It's beyond confusing. Is it a 4? Is it a 5? They started the game with 6 defenders. It looks like Edmonds Green was playing as a wide 6. That was really weird. All attacking quality is stuck very narrow, with Watson the only wide outlet. It's a mess. I'm not a professional manager or a player, but it looks massively complicated and exactly what the players look like they are when they step out on the pitch. They don't quite know how they want to play. But that's no surprise when you've got no manager in the dugout. We're looking at key players. When you win in that manner, every Derby player has to pull in the same direction and play their part, and they did exactly that. The backline dealt with 27 defensive actions, with 15 of those coming from cash-in alone. But in the middle, the game was won. Max Bird might be leaving in the summer. He might have agreed a deal with Bristol City in the summer, but he stepped up yesterday. He didn't look like he was on his way out. He accumulated 1 assist and showed brilliant awareness to pounce on that mistake for the only goal in the game. 2 chances created, 7 passes into the final third, and a 100% tackle success rate. A proper box-to-box performance from Max Bird. He was very impressive, and Adams, on his debut too, made up a great, strong, Paul-worn midfield. So around the grounds we go. Oxford 1, Reading 1, Bolton 1, Barnsley 1, Burton 0, Lincoln 1, Charlton 0, Derby 1, Cheltenham 1, Wickham 3, Exeter 0, Bristol Rovers 1, Fleetwood 3, Port Vale 0. Great work for Fleetwood, great work for Nappers. Leyton Orient 3, Carlisle 2, Peterborough 2, Wigan 3, Pompey 4, Northampton 1, Shrewsbury 1, Cambridge 2, Stevenage 1, Blackpool 0. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know in the comment section down below, how do you reflect on your team's weekend action? I'll be replying and responding to all of those as per usual. Please leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you very, very soon. Take care.